The logic behind some of these multicultural demands seems to depend upon a premise that we owe equal respect to all cultures. The implication seems to be that true judgments of value of different works will place all cultures more or less on the same footing. Of course, the attack could come from a more radical neo-Nietzschean standpoint, which questions the very status of judgments of worth as a presumption. The claim is that all human cultures that have an animated whole societies over some considerable stretch of time have something important to say to all human beings. I have wondered it is it in this way to exclude partial cultural milieu within a society as well as short phases of a major culture. My emphasis, or again, merely on the human level, one could argue that it is reasonable to suppose that cultures that have provided the origin of meaning for large numbers of human beings of diverse characters and temperaments over a long period of time are almost certain to have something that deserves our admiration and respect. My emphasis. Obviously, the dismissal of partial cultures, the emphasis on large numbers and long periods, is out of time with the modest of recognition of minority or marginalized cultures. Basing the presumption on whole societies over some considerable stretch of time introduces a temporal criterion of cultural worth that delights the disjunctive and displaced present through which minoritization interrupts and interrogates the homogeneous horizontal claim of the democratic liberal society. But this notion of cultural time functions another levels besides that of semantic or content or semantics or content. Let us see how this passage locates the observer, how it allows Taylor to turn the presumption of equality into the judgments of worth. The partial minority culture emphasizes the internal differentiations, the foreign bodies in the midst of the nation, the interstices of its uneven and unequal development, which give the lie to its self-containedness. As Nikos Poulantzas brilliantly argues, the national state homogenizes differences by mastering social time by means of a single homogeneous measure, which only reduces the multiple temporalities by encoding the distances between them. This conversion of time into distance is observable in the way Taylor's argument produces a spatial binary between whole and partial societies, one as the principle of the other's negation. The double inscription of the part in the whole or the minority position at the outside in the inside of the inside is disavowed. Yes, something of this part in the whole, the minority, as at once the internal liminality and the foreign body, registers symptomatically in Taylor's discourse. It is best described as the desire for the dialogic as term he takes for Mikhail Bakhtin, but he deprives the dialogic of its hybridizing potential. The most telling symptom of this is that despite his presumption of equality, Taylor always presents the multicultural or minority position as an imposition coming from the outside and making its demands from there. The challenge is to deal with their sense of marginalization without compromising our basic potential principles by emphasizing my emphasis. In fact, the challenge is to deal not with them, us, but with the historically and temporarily disjunct positions that minority occupy ambivalently within the nation's space. Taylor's evaluative scheme, which locates the presumption of equality and the recognition of value, the before and the after of liberal judgment, in the longue durée of rational, major national and nationalizing cultures, is in fact antithetical of the Bakhtinian hybrid, which precisely undermines such claims to cultural totalization. The hybrid is not only double voiced and double accented, but it is also double languaged, for in it there are not only and not even so much two individual consciousness, two voices, two accents, and there are doubling of social linguistic consciousnesses, two epochs that come together and consciously fight it out on the territory of the utterance. It is the collision between differing points of view of the world that are embedded in these forms. Such unconscious hybrids have been at the same time profoundly productive historically. They are pregnant with potential for new worldviews, with new internal forms for perceiving the world in words. Indeed, Batkin emphasizes a space of enunciation where the negotiation of discursive doubleness, by which I do not mean duality or binarism, engenders a new speech act. In my own work, I have developed the concept of hybridity to describe the construction of cultural authority within conditions of political antagonism or inequity. Strategies of hybridization reveal an estranging movement in the authoritative, even authoritarian inscription of the cultural sign, at the point at which the precept attempts to objectify itself as a generalized knowledge or a normalizing hegemonic practice. The hybrid strategy of discursive opens up a space of negotiation where power is unequal but its articulation may be equivocal. Such negotiation is neither assimilation nor collaboration. It makes possible the emergence of an interstitial agency that refuses the binary representation of social antagonism. Hybrid agencies find their voice in a dialectic that does not seek cultural supremacy or sovereignty. They deploy the partial culture from which they emerge to construct visions of community and versions of historic memory that give narrative form to the minority positions they occupy. The outside of the inside, the part in the whole. In Toni Morrison's novel Beloved, 1987, cultural and communal knowledge comes as a kind of self-love that it is also the love of the other. It is an ethical love in that the inwardness of the subject is inhabited by the radical and anarchical reference to the other. This knowledge is visible in those intriguing chapters where Sede, Beloved, and Denver perform a ceremony or claiming and naming true interesting and inter, interstitial subjectivities. Beloved, she my she my daughter. Beloved is my sister. I am beloved and she is mine. The women speak in tongues from a fugal space in between each other, which is a communal space. They explore an interpersonal reality, a social reality that appears within the poetic image as if it were, in parentheses, aesthetically distanced, held back, yet historically framed. It is difficult to convey the rhythm and the improvisation of those chapters, but it is impossible not to see them in the healing of history. A community reclaimed in the making of a name, as I have written elsewhere. Who is beloved? Now we understand she is the daughter that returns to Sede, so that her mind will be homeless no more. Who is beloved? Now we may say she is the sister that returns to Denver and brings hope of her father's return, the fugitive who dies in his escape. Who is beloved? Now we know she is the daughter made of murderous love who returns to love and hate and free herself. Her words are broken, like the lynched people with broken necks, disembodied, like the dead children who lost their ribbons. But there is no mistaking that her live word say, as they rise from the dead despite their lost syntax and their fragmented presence. My face is coming. I have to have it. I am looking for the join. I am loving my face so much. I want to join. I am loving my face so much. My dark face is close to me and I want to join. The idea that history repeats itself commonly taken as a statement about historical determinism emerges frequently within liberal discourses when consensus fails, and then the consequences of cultural incommensurability make the world a difficult place. At such moments, the past it seems as returning with uncanny punctuality to render the event timeless and the narrative of its emergence transparent. Do we best cope with the reality of being contemporary, its conflicts and crises, its losses and lacerations, by endowing history with a long memory that we then interrupt or startle with our own amnesia? How did we allow ourselves to forget? We say to ourselves that the nationalist violence between Hindus and Muslims lies just under the skin of India's secular modernity. Should we not have remembered that the old Balkan tribes will form again? These questions emphasize an observation that is becoming increasingly commonplace: the rise of religious fundamentalisms, the spread of nationalist movements, the redefinition of claims to race and ethnicity. It is claimed have returned us to an earlier historical movement, a resurgence of restanding of what historians have called the long 19th century. Underlying this claim is a deeper unease, a fear that the engine of social transformation is no longer the aspiration of a democratic common culture. We have entered an anxious age of identity in which the attempt to moralize lost time and to reclaim lost territories creates a culture of disparate interest groups or social movements. Here, affiliation may be antagonistic and ambivalent. Solidarity may be only situational and strategic. Commonality is often negotiated through the contingency of social interests and political claims. Narratives of historical reconstruction may be reject such myths of social transformation. Communal memory may seek its meanings through a sense of causality shared by psychoanalysis that negotiates the resurgence of the image of the past while keeping open the question of the future. The importance of such retroaction lies in its ability to reinscribe the past, reactivate it, relocate it, resignify it. More significant, it commits our understanding of the past and our interpretation of the future to an ethics of survival that allows us to work through the present. And such a working through or working out frees us from determinism of historical inevitability, repetition without a difference. It makes it possible for us to confront that difficult borderline, the interstitial experience between what we take to be the image of the past and what is in fact involved in passing on of time and the passage of meaning. Acknowledgements. This essay honors my seminar participants and colleagues at the School of Criticism and Theory, Dartmouth, 1993, without whose stimulation and support it will not have taken the form it has.